combining the latest technology with their artistic abilities. Entropic creates some of the most recognized work in their field. Our next guest is their creative director, Andrew Sinagra. Andrew, welcome into Tomorrow. Did I get the last name right?
It's Sinagra.
Sinagra. Like Sinatra.
Exactly.
Only with a G.
Yes.
And I wish you had his money, right? Or what would be left of it. Andrew, welcome into Tomorrow. Glad to have you with us. You guys are doing some pretty cool things right out of the box. I understand you're involved with American Idol and those Ford music videos.
Yeah, we just finished 13 of them, actually. You know, starting with once the finalists actually go to Hollywood, they weed out, you know, the bulk of them that they bring in, and then once they start their last 13, every Sunday we would shoot a Ford music video. So it's a combination of Ford car commercial plus music videos for the idols. So it was interesting. We had a lot of different clients, a lot of people wanting a lot of different things to come out of the product.
I'll bet. And you, as creative director, had your hands full, no doubt, when you're getting all these ideas thrown at you. And how do you handle that? How do you decide what actually makes it to air?
Well, basically, I mean, we get presented with boards from the agency, and the production company gets involved, and then they brought us in, and everybody gets together and kind of as a collective and says, okay, what's the coolest thing that we can do this week? And, you know, we would start out, you know, we started talking months before the show even aired.
Sure. And having no idea, obviously, who those finalists would be, but just insert someone here.
Exactly. Well, that was another tough issue because sometimes we would have to shoot people. Actually, every week we had to shoot somebody that we knew we would have to edit out of the show. Because sometimes we were shooting before that person was gone.
Gotcha.
So that was a tricky scenario as well because you're shooting things over and over and you're not really sure. So you can never do anything that was too elaborate because they might be gone and then you lose your segment.
Right, and that ruins all the work you've done.
Right, exactly.
Wow. Well, what was the most challenging element in putting these kinds of ideas together then?
The turnaround time.
Yeah.
We would shoot on Sunday. Literally at one point we had the editor editing in my car on the way back from the desert. You know, 'cause we had 8 hours to get the edit before we had to go in, transfer all the footage, do the post-production work, you know, and then we're shipping these things back off to the agency, to Ford, to American Idol to get approval while we're working on it. So shooting on Sunday, delivering on Tuesday.
And, of course, as you mentioned, all these other folks that have to give you approval, and, of course, they all have great ideas and changes and a plethora of them, no doubt.
Yes.
Oh, man. Well, and in addition, you do these kinds of things on a regular basis. I mean, not just the American Idol stuff, but you work on these kinds of creative ideas regularly.
Oh, absolutely. We do commercials, music videos. We work on feature films. You know, typically we don't have a 3-day turnaround time.
Yeah.
But, you know, we basically, anything that we would normally do would be probably a 2-week to maybe 3-week period. We condense down into 3 days.
So does software, and especially design software in any case, play a role in all of this?
Yeah, we actually started using a new technology on this one. Instead of shooting film and going the typical process of having to transfer everything, we actually did an entirely digital workflow. We used a digital camera called the Red. And
very familiar.
We would bring the footage directly in, edit in Final Cut, do all the quick times, and then there was no intermediary. We did all the color correction. We were doing the post at the same time the color correction was going on at our facility. So I mean, it was the first time we had ever worked that way, but it was probably the only way we could have got it done in the amount of time.
I mean, there's a term for those listening who may not be familiar in the industry. Oh, we'll fix it in post.
Right.
Well, you were fixing it in post as you were moving. And
right.
It was awesome, I'm sure.
Yes. No, we basically, on some of the things, we had post starting, you know, on some of the background effects while we were shooting. So, I mean, we were designing as we're creating because there was no time.
Yeah, so post was pre.
Yes.
And all of that. And it's like, oh, my gosh, how do you make any sense out of it? So technology, no doubt, plays an important role. When you talk about digital end-to-end, you mean every step of the way.
Yes.
You're talking about using computers and software and the ability to design your project.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, without a complete digital workflow, we could not, because I mean, when American Idol came to us and said, we want to bring this to this next level, you know, they did it last year. They were able to kind of do straight cuts, not a lot of effects, because they were doing a traditional workflow there. Yeah. This year, because of the complete digital workflow, we were able to introduce a lot more graphics, a lot more post, bring the quality level, you know, to a higher level.
Now, aside from the obvious anxieties and time pressures and so forth, does doing this make your job more fun, more interesting?
It was definitely, I mean, it was something that was a different way to work. And because we brought the editor in-house. You know, typically they work somewhere else and they post cuts, and we're like, oh, that looks good, you know. And everybody was there. I mean, we were working at 5 in the morning, you know, with the edit, with, you know, on conference calls, and because of such the short time frame, it became a much more collaborative environment. It was just like, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? And everybody was like, okay, great, let's just run with that.
Wow.
So it worked out really well, and it was a lot of fun because it changes up the way we work, and you know, you do the same thing over and over again.
Oh, of course. No, there was no dull moments, I'm guessing, right?
No,
yeah. Nobody was bored in the least.
No.
And did you have to find out, of course, with all these other people working, from cameramen to lighting folks and everything, editors, all in between, is everyone up for this challenge? Because that's what you've really got to face before you even get started. Because if you're not into this, then we need to move on and find someone else.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, even from a production standpoint, you know, getting the amount of shots and dealing with the number of talent. And we had talent that had never been on camera for most of their lives. I mean, I think 1 or 2 of them might have had some previous experience, but that was about it. So working with them, and that was actually an interesting part of it, is just seeing their reaction to the effects, because we'd stick them up in front of a green screen. They would have no idea what was going on. So
and then you have to explain. Do you ever watch the weather on TV? Well, they're pointing to the clouds, and it's just a green screen, and just stand there.
Right, exactly.
We'll tell you what to do.
Yep.
Wow. And, of course, those challenges, again, from a digital end-to-end thing, allow you, though, to also make some last-minute changes, I would guess. Idle being a live show, you have to in many cases.
Yes.
But were you able to insert some last-minute things or some effects or some changes, maybe not substituting a person real quick because it's a little more involved, but were you able to use technology to kind of save the day in many cases?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of comes back to what I was talking about, bringing the color correction in-house. We were able to spend more time getting the looks that we wanted. I think we really stylized a lot of these. And typically, we would have had to have locked that in all ahead of time. But since we were all digital and our workflow that we had, we were able to compensate all the way through and make some very last-minute changes, you know, up to a few hours before airing even. So.
Well, because I remember seeing a couple of the spots and saying, first of all, how amazed I was with how you did the product integration, and it was like, oh gosh, here comes some product placement. But you had fun with it, and it made it unique, and those idle contestants were able to do some fun things in there that you kind of forgot it was sort of a commercial.
Right.
You know, and instead it was a music video, but yeah, you certainly remembered Ford, you know, which is the idea, no doubt.
Yeah.
You know, I'm surprised they weren't holding a Pepsi or Coke or whatever it is that they also drink. But that's a whole other thing.
I'm sure Ford wouldn't have minded if it was all logos.
Yeah, right. Exactly, in the long run. Any particular interesting on-set and or post stories about this particular production that you could share with us that make people go, oh, really?
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, everyone was great. I mean, like I said, the idols were all fantastic to work with. They were all really gracious. It was just interesting, though. You know, you go out, you never know who's going to be back next week.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're like, oh, see you next week, and then you feel bad. You're like, or not.
Right. Or you develop a little bond maybe with a couple of them because you're thinking they did well, and they're really, you know, shining and showing forth, and you're thinking, I will see you next week, or not.
Yeah.
Very frustrating in one sense, I guess. What does the future hold into tomorrow? What else are you pumped about with technology that you're going to be using?
Well, we're definitely taking this digital workflow that we figured out on Idle and applying it to all our jobs moving forward. So it's really something that, you know, we learned in this process. The speed that we were able to do everything made it a completely unique way of working, and we're going to take that and move forward and apply that to everything else that we're doing.
Dynamite. Maybe they'll hire a digital voice one day. You never know. Ntropic.com for more info. The letter N, Tropic, as in our Miami area when we're not traveling. There you go, Ntropic.com. Andrew, a delight to chat with you, and a continued good luck. You're doing some very cool things. Keep it up.
Thank you very much.
We're back with more from San Francisco, California this week in the Autodesk Gallery. Dave Graveline into tomorrow on the Advanced Media Network.